This is my true story. I scattered my daughter's ashes 18 years ago. I watched them drift over Lake Michigan on a cold November morning. Her email address stayed in my contacts because deleting it felt like erasing the last piece of her from this world. 3 weeks ago, I received a message from that exact email. The subject line said, "Dad, I think I'm still alive. Please help me." I read it 17 times before I could breathe again. 18 years ago, I lost my daughter in a house fire. Her name was Emma Grace Mitchell. She was 22 years old, fresh out of college, just starting her life. She had moved into a small apartment in Chicago to begin her first real job at an architecture firm. She called me every Sunday night without fail. We would talk for hours about everything and nothing. Her mother had passed when Emma was 12, so it was just the two of us against the world for a decade. She was my best friend, my purpose, my reason for getting up every morning. The fire happened on a Tuesday night in November. A faulty space heater, they said. The building was old, the wiring was bad, and the smoke detectors didn't work properly. By the time the fire department arrived, 3 apartments were engulfed. They found remains in Emma's unit. Dental records confirmed what I already knew. My daughter was gone. I remember the phone call. It came at 6:47 inches the morning. I was making coffee, getting ready for work. A detective from Chicago PD said there had been a fire. He said they found a body. He said I needed to come identify personal effects because the remains were too damaged for visual identification. I dropped the coffee pot. It shattered on the kitchen floor. I stood there watching brown liquid spread across the tiles, thinking this must be a nightmare. This couldn't be real. I drove to Chicago in a daze. 4 hours of highway that felt like 4 minutes. When I arrived at the morgue, they showed me her jewelry. A silver bracelet I gave her for her 16th birthday. A pair of small diamond earrings that belonged to her mother. A ring with her birthstone. An emerald that she never took off. They found these items near the body. The dental records matched. There was no doubt, they told me. I signed papers. I made arrangements. I did everything a father is supposed to do when his child dies. There was no funeral. Emma had told me once that she wanted to be cremated if anything ever happened to her. She said she hated the idea of being buried in the ground, trapped in a box forever. So I honored her wish. I had her cremated, and on a gray Sunday morning, I drove to Lake Michigan. We used to go there together when she was little. We would build sandcastles and collect shells and watch the waves. It was her favorite place in the world. I walked to the end of a pier and opened the urn. The wind caught her ashes and carried them over the water. I watched until there was nothing left. Then I sat on that pier for 6 hours, unable to move, unable to think, unable to accept that my daughter was now part of the lake she loved. For 18 years, I lived in a fog. I went through the motions of existence. I retired early from my job as an electrical engineer because I couldn't concentrate anymore. I sold the house where Emma grew up because every room held memories I couldn't face. I moved to a small cabin in northern Wisconsin, away from everyone and everything. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to stop existing without actually dying. I kept her email address in my contacts, emmamitchell1998@gmail.com. I knew the account was inactive. I knew nobody would ever send messages from it again, but I couldn't delete it. Sometimes, late at night when the loneliness became unbearable, I would open my email and type messages to her. I would tell her about my day, about the deer I saw in my yard, about the books I was reading. I never sent them. I would write them and then delete them. It was pathetic, I know, a 63-year-old man writing letters to his dead daughter. But it kept me connected to her in some small way. I stopped visiting friends. I stopped returning phone calls. My brother tried to reach out for years, but eventually he gave up too. I couldn't blame him. I wasn't the same person anymore. The man who used to coach Little League and host barbecues and laugh at stupid jokes had died in that fire along with Emma. What remained was just a shell, going through motions, waiting for the end. Then, 3 weeks ago, everything changed. It was a Thursday evening, October 17th. I was sitting in my cabin reading a novel I had already read twice before. My laptop was open on the coffee table, and I heard the notification sound. New email. I almost ignored it. I rarely got emails anymore except for spam and utility bills. But something made me look. The sender's name made my heart stop. Emma Mitchell. I stared at the screen for a full minute without moving. My vision blurred. I thought I was having a stroke. I thought grief had finally broken my mind completely. But when I blinked and looked again, it was still there. An email from my dead daughter's account. My hands trembled as I clicked on it. The message was short, only a few sentences, but each word hit me like a physical blow. Dad, I know this is going to sound crazy. I don't fully understand what's happening myself, but I think I'm still alive. I've been having memories, fragments of a life I don't remember living. I remember a lake. I remember a man with kind eyes who called me sweetheart. I remember a silver bracelet. Dad, if you're real, if any of this is real, please help me. I'm in Oregon. I don't know who I am anymore. I found this email address in a dream, and I know that sounds insane. Please respond. Please tell me I'm not losing my mind. I read it 17 times. I counted. Each time, the words remained the same. My daughter, dead for 18 years, was asking me for help. My first thought was that it was a scam. Some cruel person had hacked into her old email account and was trying to manipulate a grieving father. But the details were too specific. The lake, the bracelet, the word sweetheart. I called her sweetheart every single day of her life. How would a scammer know that? My second thought was that I was dreaming. I pinched myself hard enough to leave a bruise. The pain was real. The email was real. My third thought was the one that terrified me most. What if it was actually her? I hit reply immediately. My fingers moved faster than my brain. Emma, this is Dad. I'm here. I'm real. Please tell me where you are. Tell me everything. I will come to you right now. Please, sweetheart, tell me what's happening. I sent it and waited. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. Nothing. I refreshed my inbox obsessively. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in front of my laptop until the sun came up, waiting for a response that didn't come. The next morning, I called Gmail customer support. I know it sounds stupid, but I needed to know if this was possible. Could someone send an email from an account that had been inactive for 18 years? The representative was confused by my question. He said accounts don't just send emails on their own. Someone would need to log in. He said if I was concerned about unauthorized access, I should try to recover the account and change the password. I hung up more confused than before. For 3 days, nothing happened. I barely ate. I barely moved from my laptop. I started to believe I had imagined it. Maybe I was finally going crazy. Maybe this was what a mental breakdown looked like. But then I would look at my inbox and see the email still sitting there, proof that something had happened, even if I couldn't explain it. On the 4th day, another email arrived. Dad, I'm sorry I didn't respond sooner. It's hard for me to use technology. My hands don't always work right. But I'm real. I promise I'm real. My name here is Sarah. They call me Sarah. But when I close my eyes, I see another name, Emma. I see a girl with brown hair blowing out candles on a cake. I see a man lifting her onto his shoulders at a fireworks show. I see a woman with the same eyes as mine, laughing in a kitchen. Are these memories? Are they real? Please tell me they're real. I'm at a care facility in Portland, Oregon, Shady Grove Assisted Living, room 14. Please come find me. Please help me understand who I am. I was on the road within an hour. I threw clothes into a bag without thinking about what I was packing. I grabbed my wallet, my phone, my laptop. I left dishes in the sink and lights on throughout the cabin. None of it mattered. My daughter might be alive. Might. The word felt impossible, but I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't spend another 18 years wondering, what if? The drive from Wisconsin to Oregon was over 30 hours. I stopped only for gas and coffee. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Not the face of the 22-year-old woman I lost, but the face of the little girl who used to run into my arms when I came home from work. I played our old voicemails in my head. I replayed every conversation we ever had. I was terrified that I was chasing a ghost. I was more terrified that I wasn't. Somewhere in Montana, my phone buzzed with another email. I remembered something else today. A dog. A golden retriever named Biscuit. He used to sleep at the foot of my bed. He was afraid of thunder, and I would hold him during storms. Is that real? Did I have a dog named Biscuit? I pulled over to the side of the highway because I couldn't see through my tears. Biscuit. We got him when Emma was 7 years old. He lived until she was 19. He was terrified of thunderstorms, and she would wrap him in a blanket and sing to him until the storm passed. There was no way anyone could know that. No scammer, no hacker, no stranger could possibly know about Biscuit. I replied with shaking hands. Yes, sweetheart. Biscuit was real. He was your best friend. You picked him out at the shelter because he was the only puppy who didn't bark. You said he had quiet eyes. I'm coming. I'm driving as fast as I can. Please hold on. Her response came within minutes. Quiet eyes. I remember saying that. I remember. Dad, I'm so scared. Everything feels like a dream I can't wake up from. Sometimes I know things that I shouldn't know. Sometimes I remember places I've never been. The people here think I'm crazy. Maybe I am. But if you're coming, if you're really coming, then maybe I'm not. Please hurry. I drove faster. I crossed into Oregon as the sun was setting. The mountains were painted orange and purple, beautiful in a way I couldn't appreciate. My mind was fixed on one thing only. Shady Grove Assisted Living, Room 14. My daughter. I found the facility on the outskirts of Portland. It was a plain building, beige and institutional, surrounded by a chain-link fence. Not the kind of place I imagined finding my daughter. Not the kind of place I imagined finding anyone I loved. I parked and sat in my car for a long time. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. What if this was all a mistake? What if I walked in and found a stranger? What if 18 years of grief had led me to this dead end, and I would have to drive home alone with nothing but disappointment? But what if it was really her? I got out of the car and walked toward the entrance. The front desk was staffed by a young woman with tired eyes. She looked up when I entered and offered a mechanical smile. Can I help you? I'm here to see someone, I said. My voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. Room 14. Her name is Sarah? The woman's expression changed. Something flickered across her face. Concern, maybe. Or curiosity. Are you family? I'm her father. Another flicker. She looked down at her computer screen and typed something. Sarah doesn't have any family listed in her file. She came to us 3 years ago from a hospital in Eugene. No identification, no history. She couldn't remember anything about her past. We've been calling her Sarah because she liked the name. My legs felt weak. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. Can I see her? The woman hesitated. She's been different lately, more agitated. She keeps talking about memories that don't match her file. We thought she might be experiencing some kind of psychotic episode. But if you're really her father... She trailed off, uncertain. Let me get the director. I waited in a small sitting area with plastic chairs and outdated magazines. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, a middle-aged man in a white coat approached me. He introduced himself as Dr. Williams and led me to his office. Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you some questions before I can let you see her. You understand, we have to protect our residents. Of course. How did you know Sarah was here? She emailed me. His eyebrows rose. Sarah doesn't use email. She doesn't use any technology. She has difficulty with fine motor control due to her injuries. What injuries? He paused, studying me carefully. She was found wandering near a highway outside of Eugene 3 years ago. She had severe burns over 40% of her body. Old burns, years healed, but still significant. She also had trauma to her head that caused extensive memory loss. She couldn't tell us her name, where she was from, or how she got there. The hospital treated her and eventually transferred her here when it became clear she had no one. Burns, head trauma, memory loss. My mind raced backward 18 years. The fire, the body they found, the dental records that matched. But what if they didn't match? What if there was a mistake? I need to see her, I said. Please. I've been looking for her for 18 years. I thought she was dead. I scattered ashes that I thought were hers. If there's any chance, Doctor. Williams looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Follow me. We walked down a long hallway lined with identical doors. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air smelled like antiseptic and something else, something sad. Finally, we stopped at a door marked with the number 14. I should warn you, Dr. Williams said quietly. She looks different. The burns affected her face significantly, and she may not recognize you. Her memories are fragmented at best. I nodded. I couldn't speak anymore. He opened the door. The room was small and sparse. A bed, a dresser, a window overlooking a parking lot, and sitting in a chair by the window was a woman. She turned when we entered. Her face was scarred, the skin tight and mottled in places. Her hair was short and gray. She looked nothing like the daughter, I remembered, but her eyes, oh God, her eyes, they were her mother's eyes. Green with flecks of gold, the eyes that had looked up at me from a hospital bassinet 40 years ago, the eyes that had watched me walk her down the street on her first day of kindergarten, the eyes that had cried when we buried Biscuit in the backyard. Dad? One word, one syllable. It broke me completely. I crossed the room in 3 steps and fell to my knees in front of her. I couldn't touch her. I was afraid she would disappear, afraid this was all a dream. Emma, I whispered. Sweetheart, is it really you? She reached out and touched my face. Her hand was rough with scar tissue, but her touch was gentle. I know you, she said slowly. I've been seeing you in my dreams for years. The man with kind eyes. The man who called me sweetheart. I thought I was making you up. I thought you were just something my broken brain created to keep me company. I'm real, I said. I'm here. I never stopped looking for you. I never stopped. My voice cracked. I thought you were dead. They told me you were dead. I thought I was dead too, she said. For a long time, I thought I was a ghost. Nothing made sense. I would have these flashes of memory, but they didn't connect to anything. A lake, a dog, birthday candles, a silver bracelet. She held up her arm, and I saw it there. The bracelet I gave her for her 16th birthday, scarred and tarnished but still clasped around her wrist. I never took it off. Even when I didn't know what it was, I knew it was important. I broke down completely. 18 years of grief poured out of me in that small room. I sobbed like a child, while my daughter, my Emma, held my hand and waited. When I finally caught my breath, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind since I received her first email. What happened? The fire, the body they found, the dental records. How are you alive? She shook her head slowly. I don't remember everything. The memories come in pieces. But I've been trying to put them together since the dreams started getting stronger. She closed her eyes. I remember a man, she said quietly. I met him at a coffee shop near my apartment. He was friendly, charming. We talked a few times. Then one night, he invited me to a party. I said yes. Her voice wavered. I remember getting into his car. I remember driving for a long time. Then, nothing. Everything goes black. When I woke up, I was in a basement somewhere. I was tied up. There were other women there. My blood ran cold. He kept us there, she continued. For months, maybe longer. Time didn't make sense. He would hurt us. Some of the women didn't survive. I thought I wouldn't survive either. Then one night, there was a fire. I don't know how it started. Maybe one of us started it trying to escape. The house was old, and it went up fast. I got out through a window. I was burned badly. I hit my head on something. After that, everything is fragments. Running through woods, waking up in a hospital, people asking me questions I couldn't answer. 3 years ago, I said. That's when they found you. They found me 3 years ago. But I escaped from that basement much earlier. I don't know how long I wandered before I collapsed. I don't know where I was. The doctor said the trauma to my head caused severe memory damage. I couldn't remember my name, my family, my life. I became Sarah because I had to become someone. But the fire at your apartment, I said, struggling to understand. The body they found, the dental records. I don't know, she said. Maybe someone else was in my apartment that night. Maybe the man who took me put someone there to cover his tracks. Maybe it was just a horrible coincidence. All I know is that I didn't die in that fire. I died in a different fire, a worse one, and somehow I survived. I thought about the police reports. The official investigation. They found remains. They matched dental records. They gave me ashes to scatter. But dental records can be wrong. Bodies can be misidentified. Assumptions can be made. And once a case is closed, nobody looks any further. The emails, I said. How did you send them? The doctor said you don't use technology. She smiled, and for a moment I saw my little girl again. One of the nurses here has a grandson who visits sometimes. He's about 16. I asked him to help me. I told him I remembered an email address from my dreams, and I wanted to see if it was real. He thought I was crazy, but he typed what I dictated. He sent the messages for me. She paused. I didn't expect anyone to respond. I thought it was just another delusion. Then you wrote back, and you knew about the lake. You knew about Biscuit. You knew everything. Because I'm your father, I said. I've been your father for 40 years. Nothing, not death, not fire, not 18 years of believing you were gone, could ever change that. She started to cry then, quiet tears that rolled down her scarred cheeks. I remembered you before I remembered anything else, she said. Even when I didn't know my own name, I remembered a feeling. Safety, love. A voice saying, sweetheart, and meaning it. I think that memory is the only reason I survived. I held on to it like a rope in the darkness. I pulled her into my arms and held her the way I used to when she was small and scared. She felt different than she had 18 years ago. Thinner, more fragile. But she smelled the same somehow, like lavender and something uniquely her. I'm taking you home, I said into her hair. I don't care about paperwork or procedures or anything else. You're my daughter, and I'm taking you home. Home, she repeated, like the word was foreign. I don't know where home is anymore. Home is wherever we are together, I said. It always has been. The next few days were a blur of legal documents and medical consultations. Dr. Williams was skeptical at first, but when I showed him pictures of Emma as a child, pictures that matched the shape of her face beneath the scars, he became an ally. DNA tests were ordered. The results came back 3 days later with 99.97% certainty. This woman, this Sarah, was Emma Grace Mitchell, my daughter, alive. The police reopened the investigation into the fire 18 years ago. They discovered that a woman named Jennifer Torres had been reported missing around the same time. She matched Emma's general description. It's possible, they said, that Jennifer was the one who died in that apartment. It's possible the man who kidnapped Emma put her there deliberately. It's possible the whole thing was staged. They're still investigating. I don't know if they'll ever find answers. Part of me doesn't care. I have my daughter back. That's the only answer that matters. We left Oregon together on a Tuesday morning. Emma sat in the passenger seat of my car, looking out the window at mountains and fields and small towns. She said very little, but she held my hand the entire time. Sometimes she would point at something and say, I remember this, even though she had never been there. I think she was remembering the feeling of being free, the feeling of being alive. The drive home took 3 days. We stopped at motels and diners. We ate pancakes for dinner because Emma said they tasted like childhood. She asked me questions about her mother, about Biscuit, about the house she grew up in. I answered everything. I told her stories she had forgotten and stories she had never known. I tried to give her back the 18 years that were stolen from her. She still has nightmares. She probably always will. There are memories of that basement that I pray she never fully recovers. But she's getting stronger every day. She's learning to be Emma again. Not the Emma she was before, but a new version. One that carries scars but also carries hope. My cabin in Wisconsin has a second bedroom now. I converted my study into a space for her. She decorated it with pictures I saved from her old apartment, pictures I couldn't bear to look at for 18 years but couldn't throw away either. There's one on her nightstand that she stares at often. It's a photo of her and her mother at the lake when Emma was about 5 years old. They're both laughing, their hair wild from the wind. Emma doesn't remember the moment, but she says, She can feel it. Last Sunday, we drove to Lake Michigan together. It was cold, the kind of cold that cuts through you, but Emma wanted to go. She stood at the end of the same pier where I scattered ashes 18 years ago, and she looked out over the gray water. "Do you think she's still here?" Emma asked. "My mother? I think she never left," I said. "I think she's been watching over you this whole time. I think she's the reason you survived." Emma nodded slowly. Then she pulled something from her pocket, a small silver locket that had belonged to her mother. I didn't know she still had it. I thought it was lost in the fire. "I found it in my things at Shady Grove," she said. "I didn't know what it was, but I kept it anyway. Now I know." She opened the locket. Inside were two tiny pictures, one of her mother, one of me. Both of us young and hopeful, taken before life taught us how much it could hurt. "I'm going to keep surviving," Emma said. "For her, for you, for the 18 years I lost, and all the years I still have ahead." I put my arm around my daughter and watched the waves roll in. I buried my daughter 18 years ago. I grieved her every day for 18 years. I accepted that she was gone, and that I would carry that loss until I died. But she came back to me, not as a ghost, not as a dream, but as a living, breathing woman who survived unimaginable horror and found her way home. If you're watching this, if you've lost someone you love, I'm not going to tell you they're coming back. I'm not going to promise miracles. But I will tell you this: never delete their number. Never throw away their pictures. Never stop believing that love is stronger than death. Because sometimes, against all odds, the impossible happens. Sometimes the dead come home. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're a parent who has lost a child, my heart goes out to you. I know the darkness you live in. I lived there for 18 years, but I also know that there is light on the other side, even when you can't see it. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories like mine. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And please, in the comments below, tell me where you're watching from. I read every single comment, every single one. I'm Richard Mitchell, and this is my true story. My daughter was gone for 18 years. Now she's sitting in the next room, alive and healing and home. Miracles happen. I'm living proof.